Hi everybody, Max Lucado here, from my home to yours. God bless you. God bless you. This is the day that the Lord hath made, and we will rejoice and be glad in it. Maybe it's not the day we wanted. Maybe it's not the day we designed, but this is the day that the Lord hath made. And so let's attempt at least to rejoice and be grateful for it and to seek God in the midst of it. In just a moment, I want to talk to you about how David ran toward his giant. It's such an exciting scene in the book of 1 Samuel chapter 17. But if that doesn't appeal to you, if you, for whatever reason, have something else to do, I still invite you to post your prayer needs, and we'll do our very best to pray for you and pray with you. But if you have just a couple of minutes, it won't take me long today, to look at the way that David faced his giant with passion. This passage that's found in 1 Samuel chapter 17, it's brief, but boy, it's significant. David hurried and ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. That's in verse 48. I'm thinking that David, when he went after that giant, they covered their eyes in fear. I'm thinking that King Saul sighed because he knew young shepherd boy David was going to die. And I'm thinking that Goliath threw his head back and let out a bellowing laugh. And when he did, that helmet shifted, and dead-eyed David spotted the target, and he seized the moment, and he reached into his pouch, and he pulled out one of those 5 stones, and he let loose that stone, and it missiled through the air, and it torpedoed right into the skull of Goliath, and down went Goliath. And David ran up, and he pulled out Goliath's sword, and it gets a bit graphic here, because he pulled out Goliath's sword and he cut off Goliath's head. You might say that young David knew how to get ahead of his giant. That was a joke. I know it was a terrible one. But here's the question. When's the last time you did the same? When's the last time you ran in the direction of your challenge? When's the last time you resolved? When's the last time you took it on face to face? We tend to retreat. We tend to duck. We tend to hide. We tend to anesthetize. We tend to numb ourselves, maybe with alcohol or some type of diversion, or maybe even pornography. And I guess we escape for a moment, but then as soon as we emerge from our hiding, there's the Goliath still waiting on us, booming, bombastic. Why don't you try a different tack? Saturate your mind with God. Saturate your mind with God. And then in faith, run at your giant. Emboldened by un-squashable resolve, just make a declaration. In the name of God, divorce, you're not entering my home. In the name of God, giant of depression, it may take me a lifetime, but you can't have me. Giant of alcohol, bigotry, child abuse, insecurity, you're going to go down. And you load your sling with a rock of faith, and you take a swing at your giant. How long since you've done that? Too long? Well, then David's your role model. You know, the Bible has God calling David a man after my own heart. What a great thing to say about somebody. God didn't say that about Abraham or Joseph or Moses or Paul or John, but he called David a man after his own heart. You might read the story of David and wonder why. I mean, impressive as he was, he took a lot of falls, right? He stumbled as often as he stood. Now, he did stare down Goliath, but boy, he sure stared at Bathsheba. He defied the mockers in the valley, but he joined them in the wilderness. Some days he was an Eagle Scout, but then other days he was hanging out with the mafia. He could lead armies, but my goodness, he couldn't manage a family. He was raging one minute, weeping one minute, bloodthirsty one minute, God hungry one minute. He had 8 wives. He had one God. I mean, he's a patchwork. How could he be called a man after God's own heart? Well, I think for all his follies and foibles, he modeled this. Face your giants by facing God first and facing God most. David could bring down the giant because he focused on God. Let's do that. Let's do that. Let's trust our Heavenly Father the way my friend Peter Worth trusted his earthly father. Peter was a 21-year-old student at Texas Christian University in Fort Worth, Texas, when he began to experience some pain in his right shoulder. Now, he called his father for advice. Most students would do the same, of course, call home for counsel. But few, if any student, has a better parent to call in such a situation. Peter's father, my good friend Michael, is a world-renowned orthopedic surgeon who specializes in soldiers. Peter calling Dr. Worth with a shoulder problem is like Jennifer Gates calling her father Bill with a computer question. Michael, of course, took the call, and he initially attributed Peter's pain to weightlifting. But after numbness and tingling set in, he grew suspicious of an extremely rare and dangerous situation called deep venous thrombosis. Forgive me if I mispronounced that. A clot was forming in Peter's shoulder, dangerously close to his heart. Michael was not only acquainted with the condition, but he had written a paper on how to treat it. He sent Peter to the ER, told him to request an ultrasound. Turns out Michael's long-distance diagnosis was spot on. It was right on target. Peter was immediately admitted to the hospital where the clot was dissolved, and, well, it's not an exaggeration to say his life was saved. Wouldn't it be great to have such a father? Wouldn't it be great to have an expert? Wouldn't it be great to have an authority? Friend, you do. You do. He has diagnosed every pain in the world, and he has written the book on the treatment. And we can trust him. We can trust him in this time of crisis. Let others panic. We won't. He has told us times will get bad, but in the end, all will be well. And he should know. He wrote the book on human history. You hang in there, friend, and rush and face your giant.